Hi everyone, my name is Jaylene Santiago, and today I will be doing my research presentation on Natalie Wood. She was an American actress who played pivotal roles in films such as West Side Story and Splendor in the Grass. She had over 40 nominations and 8 wins in her career. So, although she had many successful achievements, as I've mentioned, her tragic death overshadowed her accomplishments, a pattern we too often see in Hollywood. And this presentation will not only provide you with a biography of who Natalie Wood was, but also enlighten us on the sexism that occurs within Hollywood and journalism, and most importantly, how we can combat it. Officially, my research question is: has Natalie Wood's tragic death overshadowed her professional accomplishments, and what does this reveal about the way female stars are remembered in Hollywood? And I will be answering that. So, for my table of contents, we will first be discussing Natalie Wood's childhood and life, her career achievements, her death, and then Hollywood's sexism. So, for her childhood, she was born actually as Natalia Nikolovania, and I'm not going to read her last name because I am going to butcher it. And she was born on July 20th, 1938 in San Francisco, California, to Russian immigrant parents. And she was discovered at age 4. She landed her first film role in Happy Land 1943 and signed a contract with Universal Pictures by age 9. And she appeared in the big motion picture of Miracle on 34th Street. So, as you guys could see, her last name is difficult to pronounce. So, because of that, William Goetz, which was an RKO executive, changed her name to Natalie Wood, as he believed it'd be more appealing to American audiences, and it was also in honor of his friend Sam Wood. And she was discovered at a really early age, just at 4 years old, and appeared in the infamous film Miracle on 34th Street at just 8 years old, just 4 years later. And although her role was small, there was so much talent, and you could see that she had a range as an actress in this film. And when Natalie Wood is discussing her childhood, specifically, I watched an interview with Dick Cavett. She explains that although her childhood was unorthodox, she wouldn't change a thing. She felt that the directors let her do her thing, so she attended regular school. She actually didn't attend acting school. But she does want to acknowledge that this is not an experience that every childhood actress has. She does feel lucky in a certain regard, and she specifically says that she wasn't a childhood star, rather just a childhood actress. And she refers to Shirley Temple, and she knows that that was a person who had so much stardom and so much fame, and that definitely was a difficulty because they were a childhood star, whereas Natalie Wood was just a childhood actress. And she really didn't take off until she was later in her teens. So, for her personal life, Natalie Wood first met Robert Wagner in 1956 when they both worked on the film A Kiss Before Dying. And at the time, Wood was 17 years old and Wagner was 26. So there was a pretty big age gap, and they quickly became romantically involved and were married in December 1957 when Wood was 19 years old. So, they became a Hollywood icon, and a lot of people liked them as a couple, but this also gave them a lot of pressures because they constantly had the spotlight on them. And she actually wrote in an unpublished article, "How do you separate reality from illusion when you've been trapped in a make-believe all your life?" So this basically was alluding that she was having a lot of marital problems, and they divorced in 1962. And after her divorce, she had several relationships, including James Dean, Warren Beatty, Dennis Hopper, Richard Gregson, and then she actually ended up remarrying her first husband in 1972, and they stayed together until she passed away in 1981. And we are going to get back to her death, but I first want to talk about her career achievements because she was a phenomenal actress and just amazing. So, for her movies, she appeared in Rebel Without a Cause, Splendor in the Grass, and West Side Story. She did appear in a lot of other films, but these 3 are really her most famous ones. And I'm going to just speak a little bit briefly about what she did in these films and what were her most famous scenes. So, in Rebel Without a Cause, she plays an angsty teen who has a stony exterior. However, during a game of a chickie run, which is basically when teens drive off a cliff, there is a touching moment where the viewer can see who she truly is. And even though she does come off really angry and very cold. She does have emotions and does need affection. And then in Splendor in the Grass, she is playing a teen who's in love, yet the boy comes from a very wealthy family, and she isn't very wealthy, and her parents are very conservative. And the couple faces societal pressures and a lot of sexual tension. And her most famous scene in this film is basically she's experiencing an emotional breakdown because her and this boy just broke up, and her mom walks in and is asking her, "Are you okay? What happened?" And Natalie is just extremely distraught, and her mom ends up asking her if whether or not she's spoiled, basically referencing to whether or not she's a virgin. And Natalie just seems so frustrated by society that she ends up yelling and basically throwing a fit and saying that she's not spoiled, and just really demonstrating how tired she is of these societal expectations and these norms. And whereas in West Side Story, she is playing a Puerto Rican girl who falls in love with a white man, something sort of similar. It's a forbidden type of love, and it's very similar to Romeo and Juliet. And I mean, this is an extremely famous film, and she had a very pivotal role in it. So, for her death, on November 29th, 1981, Natalie Wood's body was found floating in the waters off Catalina Island in California. The cause of death was initially ruled as an accidental drowning, but there were inconsistencies in witness accounts and an unclear timeline of events. In 2011, the case was reopened, and the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department changed the cause of death to drowning and other undetermined factors. So I do want to expand a little bit more on her death and why people were just so captivated by it and why people had so many theories. So basically, at the time, Natalie was married to Wagner, and she was filming a movie with another man called Walken. And it is suspected that they were having an affair. So they basically all went on a yacht, and it was nighttime, and it said on that night, November 29th, the three actors had been drinking together, and Wagner reportedly broke a bottle during a fit of anger over Wood's relationship with Walken. He thought the pair seemed too close, and then after that incident, Wood and Wagner allegedly argued. Later that evening, Wagner was unable to find Wood. Her body was discovered the following morning, floating in the water off Catalina Island near a dinghy from the Splendor. Her death was ruled an accidental drowning, and it was theorized that Wood fell in the water after attempting to secure the dinghy to prevent it from banging into the boat. Yet, some objected to this explanation, as Wood had a lifelong fear of the water. So basically, there's a lot of speculation of whether or not it was an accidental drowning or if she was murdered. And this tragic death just really overpowered who Natalie Wood was as a person, and this is a repeated pattern in Hollywood. And basically, we see this in actresses such as Marilyn Monroe and Judy Garland, and this really only happens with women in Hollywood. So specifically, Marilyn Monroe appeared in many films. I mean, she's an icon, yet her personal life overshadows a lot of it. So many times when people bring up Marilyn Monroe, they speak about her affair with President Kennedy or about her addictions and her mental issues, and they're not really speaking about her successes as a person. And the same goes for Judy Garland, a woman who appeared in The Wizard of Oz. I mean, this movie was so ahead of its time, and she was so talented in it. And people just remember her more so as a victim, and they don't really recognize how much talent she truly had. And I'm going to just further prove how this isn't only just a fault within Hollywood, but it's also a fault within journalism. So we're going to be comparing two New York Times articles speaking about the death of specifically Judy Garland and them speaking about the death of Elvis Presley. So specifically in Judy Garland's New York Times article, it was published in 1969, and the first 3 lines is saying Miss Garland's personal life often seemed like a fruitless search for happiness. Her father died when she was 12 years old. She was married 5 times. She was frequently ill. Her singing voice faltered. And they basically discuss her personal life and really don't speak about how talented she was, and really just speak bad about her. Whereas in Elvis Presley's article, when the New York Times is announcing his death, they're praising him and praising his career achievements. I mean, the first line is literally saying, Elvis Presley, the first and greatest American rock and roll star, died yesterday at the age of 42. Mr. Presley, whose throaty baritone and blatant sexuality redefined popular music, was found unconscious in the bedroom of his home called Graceland in Memphis yesterday at 2:30 p.m. I mean, they don't talk about his addictions or his behavior in the first couple of lines. They're rather praising him, which further proves the sexism that just occurs in Hollywood and also journalism and the way that we perceive actors, actresses, and just talented artists, musicians. It's just like this pattern that when women die tragically, it's not, nobody talks about how amazing they were, but rather just talks about their death and their personal life. And basically, this is the conclusion, is that Natalie Wood's tragic death has shadowed her career. And her story highlights a broader pattern in Hollywood where female stars often find their legacy shaped more by personal tragedies than by their professional achievements. By remembering her for both her stellar career and the mystery surrounding her death, we honor the complexity of her life and legacy, ensuring that she is celebrated not just for how she died, but for how she lived and contributed to film history. And basically, my conclusion is that there should be more of a focus of her talent rather than her death, and that is a better way to fight this sexism that is occurring in Hollywood and in journalism. And yeah, that was my research presentation. I really hope that you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and bye.